being offered at the same time. Don't worry, because we're going to videotape each session and we're going to post them on our website. Okay? Thank you.
All right, well, good evening, everyone. As Mr. Johnson said, my name is Macy Lennox, and I'm one of the Senior Assistant Deans at the Admissions Office at UVA, and it's my pleasure to be here to talk to you guys about admissions in general. So I'm just not here as a UVA rep, I'm actually here just to talk to you guys about the admissions process in general. In addition to working and having attended UVA, I've worked in admissions at a few other universities. I worked at Mount Holyoke College when I first graduated from UVA, then moved on to Harvard University, Princeton University, and Duke University before returning back here to UVA. So I have about 20 years of admissions experience and have read thousands upon thousands of college applications. So I hope to share with you kind of general information about the college application process. And as I was preparing for tonight, should have looked at the clicker here. All right, let me go back to the computer here. Okay, I was kind of curious about what is the landscape of colleges and universities these days. And parents, if you look at the numbers I have, which I have quite a bit, if we look back in 1980, the number of degree-granting institutions, if we look at the two-year universities, we're about 1,300 universities. 4 years, we're about, 1,900, about 2,000 universities. And if you go all the way over to 2010, which is the latest numbers they had in this particular page that I was looking at, you see a really significant increase in the number of universities. All this to say that there are a great deal of choices available for students these days. We can look at public universities, private universities, two-year institutions, four-year institutions. So the first question that you have to answer is, how do I choose? Where do I apply? So I'm curious, how many of you guys here are seniors? Okay, how many juniors? Okay, so many of you are just now starting that search, that process of finding the right university. And, I think that finding the right college is a lot like finding the right spouse. So bear with me here. This is a really major decision-making process. And you wouldn't go up to a stranger and say, "Will you marry me?" And likewise, you shouldn't be accepted to a university and decide to go without getting to know the university. So the first step is kind of thinking about some broad parameters. Think about the size of school that you're interested in. Think about the location. Think about the academic focus. Are you maybe interested in engineering? Well, my husband, who is a very smart guy, wound up on a tour at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. He lived in Pennsylvania, got all the way down there and raised his hand and said, "Could you tell me about the engineering program?" And they said, "We don't have one." So you don't want to get that far along. You want to do your research first. Make sure you understand the universities. Think about what you're looking for, size, location, academics, and then take a dip in the water, okay? Just as you would when you're dating around, kind of see what you like, what's going to work for you, what's not going to work for you. Think about the qualities that you're interested in and go visit and try it on and see what you think about the university. So visiting universities is important, and just a little plug for UVA. I know we're just down the road, but if any of you are interested in UVA, come and go for a tour. Even if you've been to grounds, to a football game, or to a concert, trust me, it's different when you see it through the eyes of a student. So really, every place you're looking, you should go for a tour. You should talk to the current students before you even begin to think about applying. Would you take someone out on a date for a $70 dinner before you got to know them a little bit? Probably not. So don't pay the $70 application fee for a university until you get to know it a little bit. Now, as you're looking through, you're going to find some things that are going to stick out and some institutions that you're going to become particularly attracted to and interested in. And, and that's normal. But I would say don't stop with one. Right now, you're not looking for the one and only university. That will come a little bit later. Try to find several universities that you're interested in. About this time of year, every fall, I get emails from students saying, Ms. Lennox, I just wanted to let you know that UVA is the only place I want to go and I'm about to submit my application. And it always makes me a little bit nervous. Because what I want to say is, don't pull out the ring yet. Don't ask me to marry you yet. This is a two-way street. It's you declaring your love, but it's also the admissions committee declaring their love back. It kind of has to go both ways. So don't get your heart set on a school until you have those decisions in hand, if you can, okay? Because it does go both ways. And the nature of a selective admission school is that, unfortunately, we often have to say no more than we can say yes. So, try to keep your options open. Now, once you do get those acceptance letters from institutions, that's when the work really begins. That's when you need to go back to those universities, where you need to take a look even closer at the websites, look at the classes that are offered, dig into the handbooks and find out what's offered in the departments, what the faculty are doing. Go visit campus, try to come for an overnight visit if you can. Because you want to choose the right place. You're making an investment for 4 years. So don't stop your research when your acceptance letters comes in. That should be when you really hit it the hardest, okay? So when you're thinking about where to apply, you got to think about selectivity. And there are varying levels of selectivity if you're looking at the landscape of college admission. You start with open enrollment. Universities or colleges like community colleges, where you can apply, have your transcript, show your graduation, and you can take classes there. For some people, that's all they want. For others, it's a jumping off point. If you look in the state of Virginia, we have an extremely strong community college system here. Most of the 4-year public universities in the state of Virginia have articulation agreements with the community colleges, where if you maintain a certain grade point average and have taken a certain set of courses at a community college, after 2 years, you are guaranteed admission to that university. So, definitely, even if you're thinking 4 years down the road, don't rule out the community colleges as a possibility. We do have great ones in the state of Virginia. So we have open enrollment options. And then we're going to move into the realm of selective admissions. Now, I always shudder at the term selective admissions because it sounds kind of exclusive and clubby, and it always makes me cringe just a little bit, because that's really not what the term is saying. A selective university is a university that receives more applications than it can accept. That's it, okay? So the process becomes one of selecting the candidates that you're going to accept. Now, for some schools, that selection is going to be one where you're basically just looking for qualifications. Have you met certain levels of qualifications? If you do, you're in. If you don't, you're not. It's a little bit clear-cut. But then we're going to move on into institutions that you might term highly selective institutions, or most selective institutions. And the decision criteria is going to change at that point. A highly selective institution is an institution that's going to receive more qualified applicants than they have room in the class to accept, okay? So all of a sudden, the decision isn't just based upon whether or not you're qualified or not qualified. The question for the admissions office becomes, who amongst this set of qualified students are we going to accept? That's a really interesting question for people in my field. We spend a lot of time talking about the criteria that we're going to use to make those choices. But this is a really important thing to understand. A lot of students, and very understandably, want to know where that bar rests for a university. My kids are in Albemarle schools as well, and my daughter just had a science project due, and we get this wonderful rubric that comes home and says, okay, if you do this, 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 and this, you'll get the top grade. And if you do this, 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 and this, you might not get the top grade, but you'll get the second grade. All this to say, it's very clear cut. You know where the bar exists. And the problem and the frustration with selective admissions is that you don't. Because most students are going to meet that top bar, or more at least than we are able to accept. So it becomes a matter of choice, a matter of selection. And that's where selective admissions comes from. Okay, so we're going to move on to the different parts of an application. Now, what you're going to need to fill out is going to depend upon the school to which you're applying. But when you're looking at a selective or highly selective school, some or all of these things most of these things are going to be required as a part of that process. You're going to need a transcript from your high school. You're going to need to fill out some personal information about, obviously name, address, information like that, but also information about your parents. Did they go to college? Did they not go to college? Were you born in the country? Is English your first language? Questions like that. We're also going to ask for recommendation letters from teachers and guidance counselors. Most schools are going to ask for that guidance counselor letter of recommendation and 1 or 2 letters of recommendation from teachers. We're going to ask you to write for us, and the essay is going to become an important part of the process. Some schools are going to ask you for a resume, but I would encourage you to only send that item if it is requested. Most schools are going to have some form where they're going to ask you to fill it out to tell us about your extracurricular activities, and that is the form that we are going to look at most closely, much more closely than a resume where things are going to be in different places for different students. Some schools are going to ask you to do an interview, either with an alumni representative or with someone, a member of the admissions staff. If you're looking at those college visits, definitely see if there's an option at the university to which you're visiting to go and do that interview. Sometimes it's something that you can do while you're there for your tour. And an application fee. Fee waivers are available. If you think you qualify, absolutely talk to your guidance counselor about that. Now, so these are the different parts of the puzzle. And once you apply, most universities will have a page that you can go to that's a checklist, and that will tell you what we have and what we don't have. And while I think the checklist is a good idea from a mechanics standpoint, I think sometimes it gets the wrong idea in the heads of students. Because you think all you have to do is check the boxes. Okay, transcript, check. Fill out the personal information, check. Write the essay, check. And when you're talking about selective admissions, you don't just want to think about checking the boxes, okay? Because what is going to matter is not having this information. It is going to be your presentation of the information, what it says about you, how it makes you stand out amongst a pool of qualified applicants. So I want you to think beyond the checklist that we see here. And when I think about college admissions and the selection process, I think about a series of questions. These are the questions that I want to answer when I'm reading your application. This is what I'm trying to figure out. First and foremost, I want to know if you've challenged yourself academically. I want students who are excited about academic rigor, because they're going to get it when they come to college. I don't want students who are going to come to UVA and try to take the easiest classes that they can. I want students who are going to come and they're going to contribute and they're going to look for the tough classes and they're going to want that type of challenge. That's why challenging courses are important in the admissions process. We're always going to look at that item within school context, okay? So if a school doesn't offer advanced courses, I'm not going to penalize a student who attends that school for not taking them, okay? But if the classes are offered, if you have the opportunity to attend a high school where strong classes are offered, I want to see that students have accepted challenge, okay? So challenging program is one area that colleges are going to consider in the admissions process. We want to see that you've challenged yourself academically, that you've taken solid academic courses across the curriculum, English and math, social science, and foreign language. Okay? We want to see some academic challenge. We're going to look very closely at the transcript when we're making decisions. And it's one of the first places when I'm reading an application that I'm going to go to try to figure that out. I want to know how you succeeded academically. What are your grades? Okay? A lot of students focus on grade points or class ranks, but we really don't. I spend most of my time looking at your transcript and looking at the grades that you've made in your courses, okay? So, no one is perfect, right? We don't expect perfection on the transcript. We expect that there might be some bumps in the road. But generally, we're going to want to see an upward trend. So maybe the first few years of high school were a little rocky. That's okay, it's understandable. But we're going to want to see that as you've gone up in school, you have accepted more challenge and been able to meet with some more success. So we're going to look at it kind of on a trend, from a trend standpoint. Now sometimes things happen, moves happen, family tragedies happen, and we understand that. But it's important that if you've had a grade dip for some important major reason, that you let us know. If there's a hole, fill it. Your guidance counselor can do that. You can also do it through writing some information in your additional information piece as a part of the application. For the common application, they have a specific section where you can do that, okay? But generally, we're going to want to see academic success. Now, seniors in the room, senior year is a big year. You're probably working on your college applications. And there are a lot of people who think application goes out the door, I can take a break. I can enjoy senior year. Well, not so much, guys. We still want to see you succeeding academically. You can still enjoy senior year, but we want those grades to stay up. Now, when I read applications, there are some cases that I might look at and say, you know, there's a few little bumps here and there. I'd really like to see how they're doing in their senior year courses. And we're not going to get those grades until February typically. So if I'm reading this application prior to that, I'll put it on hold and I'll wait to get those grades. So I was doing this last March, sitting in my kitchen on a weekend morning reading applications. And my 9-year-old son was sitting next to me. And he was eating a bowl of cereal. And at one point, I just slammed my hand on the counter. And his cereal bowl shook, and I said, Ben, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to disturb your breakfast. And he said, oh, that's okay, Mom. Did someone else mess up their mid-year grades? And I said, yeah, Ben, someone else did. And what you have to understand is if I have taken the time to read your application and say, I really like this student. The grades aren't quite there, but let's hope that they can pull a strong senior year. If they do, I think we should take them. And I go back and look at that case in March, and those grades have tanked. Not only does it make me upset, but my argument falls flat. Whereas if you had succeeded, that could have been the difference in the decision. So this isn't going to happen in every single case, but it's enough every year that my 9-year-old knew what got Mom mad in March was people messing up their mid-year grades. So all this to say, persevere through senior year, because those grades, those courses definitely will matter to us in many situations, okay? Okay, so the transcript gives me a sense of your quantitative success in the classroom. It's a quantitative measure of your success in the classroom. What's a qualitative measure of your success in the classroom? What tells me about the qualities you bring to the classroom? Come on, you know it.
Teacher recommendations.
On the nose. Teacher recommendations. The most underrated part of the application, people. Teacher recommendations. Okay. Students think, oh, I do well, my teachers like me. Any teacher is fine. But if you're talking about a selective process, you want to stand out. And that's one way for you to really stand out in the process. Show me how you stand out in the classroom. What do you contribute uniquely to the classroom setting? So when you choose the teachers to write your recommendations, if the school asks for them, choose wisely. It's not about the class where you got the highest grade. Guess what? I've got your transcript. I'll see the grade you made. You want the teacher who is best able to talk about your unique contributions to the classroom. That's the person who should be writing your letter of recommendation, okay? So choose wisely. Choose someone who can be an advocate for you and can share something new, because that can help you stand out. So that's going to give me a sense of what you contribute to the classroom. What tells me how you contribute outside the classroom? Yes, activities, things that you're engaged in outside of the classroom. I want to see students who have made an impact. For most universities, guys, it's not going to be about a list of activities. It's going to be about the depth of contribution. It's going to be about the impact you're making to those organizations. That's what's going to make the difference, okay? So you want to communicate that to us. This past year, I had a student apply, and she wrote that she was president of an organization called Husky Helpers. But she didn't tell me anything about it. And so I looked back at some of the recommendations and looked back at her essays and looked at the school profile that the guidance counselor provides and tried to find out what this organization could be. No luck. So then I started laughing, thinking about the number of things Husky Helpers could be. Is it a doggy daycare, dog walking service? Is it a service dog that rescues huskies? Is Husky the school mascot and it's a mentoring or an orientation or tutoring program? Are they training for the Iditarod? I don't know, because they didn't tell me. Now, most normal organizations, national organizations, even, many of the school organizations, I'm going to know them. It's my job to know them. I've worked in this field for a long time. I know most of the organizations. But if there's something that is very school specific, you need to communicate that to us. Because even though this person probably contributed a lot to Husky Helpers, I didn't know what the contribution was, so it doesn't carry weight. Okay? So extracurriculars are important. Many people, when they think about extracurriculars, again, think about checking the boxes. Arts, community service, sports, student government. No, I don't care what you do. I just want you to make an impact in the things that you do. Some students also don't think to tell us that they work or that they have family obligations. Maybe they can't do extracurriculars because they have to go home and watch a sibling, or they hold a job. These are absolutely important contributions to the classroom, to the community. So even though it's not school-based, it's an important thing to communicate to us. So think broadly about your contributions. It's not just about what you do in the school. It's about what you do in your life, okay? And finally, what type of person are you? Now, I have worked in this field for a while, and I get a lot of questions about average SAT scores and grade point averages for UVA, but it is very rare. I could probably count on one hand the number of times someone has asked me, what type of person are you looking for at UVA? But that's an important question. When you're talking about a residential community, which a lot of the schools that you're going to be looking at are residential communities, it's about choosing members of our community. It's not just about choosing students in our classrooms. So you want us to like you. You want us to get to know your passions and your strengths. As interviews, that's one way to absolutely do that. Some students get really frightened by interviews, but I can assure you it's really just about getting to know you better and giving you the opportunity to ask questions about the institution. Essays are another way for us to get to know you. And this sometimes scares students too. They think, I have to be formal and write an essay that they want to hear. Did any of you attend my essay talk here last week? A few of you. Okay, so you know how I feel about essays, but for me, it's about telling you about who you are as a person. It's about being real. Writing something that is going to, don't write something that you think I want to hear. Don't write like a political opinion piece because you think it makes you sound smart. I'm going to see if you're smart or not. That's why I asked for all that other information. I want to get to know you as a person. There's a lot of rules I could tell you, and I shared with a lot of the folks who are at the essay writing workshop. But I'm going to leave you with just one, given the limited time we have. And that is, show, don't tell. Show, don't tell. There is a difference between reading an essay that is written in kind of a 5-paragraph traditional way. I like soccer. Soccer has taught me many things, including leadership and a strong work ethic and perseverance in the first paragraph. First supporting paragraph might talk about a story about leadership. Second supporting paragraph might tell me a story about how soccer taught them about a work ethic. Third supporting paragraph might tell me, you guessed it, how soccer taught them perseverance. And then they close it up. Would you want to read 5,000 of those every year? So when you're thinking about your essay, step beyond a traditional format. Go deeper. Soccer is a perfectly fine topic, but don't stop there. I want you to dig deeper and tell me about, really the one thing that soccer has brought you that's most important. Maybe it's leadership. Okay. So then you want to talk about the one instance that most clearly characterizes what you learned. And put me in that position. Show me what's going on. Maybe it was, the finals of a soccer tournament and the score was tied and you were the captain and the team was looking at you. Okay, that's where you start your essay, is that moment. It's not something you'd bury into paragraph 3. Start there and tell me that story and be descriptive and be comfortable sharing vulnerabilities. Tell me what's going through your head. That's what I want to hear. That's what's going to make an essay personal. Think about it creatively, and think about it more as a story. Show me, don't tell me. Okay? So these are the things that we're all going to be looking at when we're reviewing the applications. These are the questions that we're going to be asking ourselves. Now, most schools are going to ask for standardized testing as well. I normally hear a little groan from at least part of the room when I say that. Standardized testing are the one means that we admissions officers have of looking at our pool on the same scale. Like it or not, that is why it's important and that is why they are used, okay? For most universities, it's going to be one piece among many. one piece of the puzzle that we're reviewing. And I have never worked at a place where the testing is more important than the transcript, okay? What you're doing 5 days a week is going to be more important. But in a selective process where choices are being made, testing is a factor that will be weighed in the process. I get a lot of questions about SAT 2-subject tests as well. For UVA, they're optional. For other schools, they're required. Why do we require those? Why do we want to see those? Or why do we ask for them even if they aren't required? The way I see it is it's one way to show us your subject proficiency. If you rock at calculus, take a subject test in that area. Show us, give us one more measure to show us your ability. That's how you should view it. You should view it as an opportunity to show us your ability, okay? But testing is going to be a factor, whether or not we want it to be or not. Okay, so now we're going to apply. Now, parents, you may remember going through the college admissions process where we had to fill out an individual application for every single school. Yes? Yes? Name, social security number, parent information on every single school. Students, this is kind of one of those walked uphill both ways to school things because you are in luck. The Common Application has solved that problem for many of you. Now there's still some schools who are going to ask for a school-specific application for one reason or another, but you're going to find that a large number of universities will ask for the Common Application, so you only have to fill out all of that information on one occasion. Now, does anyone see my message here on the slide? Okay, I did that very intentionally. I mentioned my son, and I'm going to have to pick on him again because he had a big project due this week. And he was up very late one night working on it. He was putting the final touches, and he put the introduction sheet about the project in the front. And I looked at it, and in letters about that size, it said, "No pencil, pen only." And I flipped back and looked at his paper, which was all written in pencil, and said, "Ben, I don't think you're going to bed just yet, bud. You gotta follow the instructions, all right? It's true for Ben and his project, and it's true for all of you. And you might think, well, of course, Macy, I'm gonna follow the instruction on the application, but you would be surprised, amazed even, at the number of people who don't do that, okay? Read the instructions, understand what you're supposed to submit and what we don't want you to submit, okay? That's an important thing to remember as you're going through the application. Really, the one thing that I want to convey. Definitely make sure you're following the instructions for that particular university. Again, I mentioned resumes a little while back, and a lot of students think, they want to do that and put their own fancy formatting on their extracurricular life, and that's great. But you have to understand, when we're reading applications quickly and a lot a day, I really like our forms because I know where to look for things. I know where to look for leadership, I know where to look for extracurriculars, I know where to look for the number of hours per week you're doing these things. Everyone does their resume a little differently, and it requires me to look in a lot of different places, and there's a much greater likelihood that I'm going to miss something. So rather than spend time on a resume, unless the school asks for it, I would spend your time on your extracurricular form. Fill that out completely. Make sure that we know your contributions through that, and don't depend on a resume to do it for you. Okay, running out of time here, but I do want to talk about the different admissions deadlines. Now, some schools are going to have, and I kind of skip down to the bottom, an open enrollment. You submit the application at any particular time during the year. Other schools will have rolling admission, where you could submit throughout the year, and you'll get a decision on a rolling basis depending on when you submit. Now, for rolling schools, still sometimes it's going to benefit you to apply early in the process. So, if you're a senior year person and you say, oh, I have until March to apply, make sure you look a little closer at that application, at the instructions that the admissions office said. Sometimes they'll say students who apply before December 31st are going to have an advantage in the process. So make sure you check that out if you're looking at a rolling school. We have regular admission, which is the traditional process. We parents, most of us are very familiar with that. If you apply by January 1st, we notify you by April 1st. It's NACAC rules that we do that. And you have till May 1st to tell us if you'd like to attend. All right, and now we're going to get into the willy-nilly. back at the top of my list here, which is early programs. Now, this is another place where you're going to need to read the website because every school is going to have a different early program. There's two primary ones. Early decision, which says you have to decide that you're going to attend that school before you submit your application. Because if you are admitted, you are bound to attend. You actually sign a contract saying you will attend. And early action, which is a non-binding program, which means you can apply early. We'll let you know early, but you don't have to decide until May the 1st. But now every school is going to look at these differently. Some might say, well, if you apply early decision, you get a benefit in the process. Some will say that you don't. Some will say, absolutely, everyone apply early action. Other schools might say, don't apply early action if you have a hiccup in your record somewhere. Read the instructions for each school. Every school is going to be just a little bit different in terms of how they view early versus regular. Okay, I'm done. But we don't have a lot of time here, but I want to just see if there's a few questions that I can answer for you guys before you start your sessions. Yes. Right. Definitely you want to communicate any disabilities with the admissions committee. A lot of schools, most will have offices, disability offices as well. And I would go ahead and reach out to those schools during the application process and make sure that the school is able to accommodate those disabilities, and they will have a sense as well as to the way it's viewed within the admissions process. Yes?
How do admissions committees look on gap years?
Yeah, every place that I have worked, we love them. It's great. It's benefit to us. You come with more maturity and more experience in the world. So absolutely. In fact, in our acceptance letter, which I hope some of you received this March, we encourage students to do it.